Hello, quilters, and good afternoon. My name is Jared Cahoon with the Grace Company Canada, and I am happy to be introducing our next presentation. This is the second to the last presentation of our 4-day Quilt Canada presentations. This is the Baby Bubble Quilt, or Bubble Baby Quilt? Bubble Baby Quilt, I think, is what it's supposed to be. Um, by Karla Gerome. Now, I consider this a part two to the workshop that we went over yesterday with Karla called Strip Tease. This, I believe, uses very similar techniques. And so if you haven't seen that one, after you're done watching this live, go ahead and skip back over. If you're watching this later, I'd recommend watching that workshop first. Let me see. Well, so yeah, you guys have been here for 4 days. This is day 4, so I'm sure you all know Karla well. Hopefully, we can get her to come up into Canada to teach some classes to us in person for a future event. If that's of interest to you, make sure you comment down below, and I'll let her know how excited we are to have her in Canada next time she's able to get up here, COVID permitting. Without any further ado, Karla Gerome and the Baby Bubble Quilt.
I'm really excited to show you this fun little bubble baby quilt or baby bubble quilt, whatever you want to call it. It is just a fun, soft quilt that every guy in here has played with because it's so bouncy and it's so easy to make. The process that I came up with, you'll get it done in no time. So let me just quickly tell you how I came up with this idea. I was given a bubble quilt for my firstborn, CJ, and from a dear friend, and she spent hours working on it. And so when they asked me to come up with a new class, I was really excited about the name Baby Bubbles and what could I do to reinvent it, to make it a little more modern and for now and today, and how could I use the frame on our machines to really make it easier. And so I am going to walk you through the process of how I made this. So I just want to show you the back as well. So it's made with Minky and just some solid fabrics. And I have this little polka dot just to add another little element of fun and whimsy to it. And also on my strip quilts, I am now doing a blank area because I don't think it needs to be filled up all the way. And let me just show you the back. So this quilt isn't going to have a binding on it, which makes it even nicer because you don't have to spend a few hours sewing the binding up. So let me just jump in and show you how easy it is to make. So what I did is I cut out my strips and I made my squares, sorry, because these are squares. I cut out my strips at first and I cut them out at 5.5-inch strips. Because I only had so much Minky left over from cutting off some of it. I bought 2 yards of Minky and I cut off the bottom section so I could add it to the top. And so I cut them 5.5-inch strips, and then I cut the strips into 5.5-inch squares. And then this is the boy baby quilt. So this is the boy baby bubbles, and I have the girls on the frame. So what I did is, and this is the backing for the girl baby bubble quilt. It's just nice and soft, and it's a little bit not as high a shank on the Minky, but it's a nice soft little Minky as well. So I cut them into squares, and then I just started laying it out because I didn't want 2 of my squares to be the same together. So it was easier for me to lay out my blocks. So I just started laying them out, and then I would sew them together. And I just wanted them to be different going across. So you'll sew your blocks together in strips. And I'll go over there and show you. And I have 8 blocks across on each quilt. So I'm just going to come over here to the frame and grab these right here because I laid them on there, okay? So these are what they look like when they're all sewn together. And it makes it easy. So when I go over to the frame, I stacked them up from the first row to the last row and how I wanted to pull them off my stack. So if you have that after you've sewn them all together, if you'll leave your bottom row on the very last row on the bottom and work your way up so that you'll start out with the correct way, and then you'll want to position them the way you want to sew them on your quilt, because you don't want to turn it over and have two of your blocks sewn together. So you just want to make sure that you mark that this is going to be my left side and my right side, because there's nothing more frustrating than to pull it up and then pull it off the frame and see that you have two of the same block together. So now that I've showed you that, this is so easy. I am just using my batting. Notice that I don't have a backing on it whatsoever. So I am just sewing my blocks to my batting here. And that's so I can sew my backing on last of all. And it's also so I can, so you won't see my dips and wobbles in it because it's not going to be totally straight going across. Now, if you wanted to sew it directly to your backing, that's your choice, and you absolutely could. I would just use the channel locks, which I'm not going to use. I'm just going to use my foot like I did in the first one, just sew straight across. So let me show you how I set it up first of all. Right here on my first row, what I like about our feet is that we have a flat edge on our feet. And so I can line the foot up along the back of this take-up pole and move it right along, and it's going to give me a nice straight line all the way across. So that's going to be my starting line that I'm going to line my first row up next to. So that's how I came up with this line right here. I don't know if you could see it. Can you see it right here? This row. Okay, so that was my first line all the way across that I used my foot. And then I laid down my very first row, all right? And I'll show you this process. I just wanted to explain how I sewed this section first, okay? So then after I sewed it down across the top, and you can see that I went all the way to the very edge of it, and I sewed it across the top, then I had to sew down. So now I'm going to make little pockets to stuff each of these little squares. And that's what I'm going to explain next. So I came across, so I started on this side. I started right here, and I went up, and then I moved across, and I sewed right next to the edge. So now I'm over here on this side, and now I'm going to move down, okay? And now I'm going to just come off. I don't want to sew this closed. I just want to move off the edge, and then I'm going to move up and sew a little pocket. And I'm going to move across, sew down, and move across, and then sew up. But I just wanted to show you how I got to that point. Sorry, I knocked those off. That's okay. Now I'm going to roll it up. And you can notice that I have my pole up off my arm of my machine because it's a little stuffy and a little puffy. But I'm just going to roll it up right here, and you can see how I stuffed it. And I've used this stuffing right here. It's called Polyfill, and it just makes it nice and springy and fun to touch. So I'm putting that right here. And you notice that I did some little flowers because I wanted to change it up just a little bit. So this right here are my little flowers. And I did them a little differently. And so I stuffed this little flower right here, and then I just stuffed the center of it. Now it just kind of makes it fun and different, and it makes it my quilt. Now I'm going to use my clips to give me tension. As I'm going to get ready to sew my next row on. And I could go back in and fill in this area too if I wanted to, but I just have to sew across and I could stuff them. Yeah, here we go. Let me go back over here. All right, where did I put my scissors? There they are. Moving around a lot. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like to stuff that, and then I'm going to sew another row. So I'm going to make sure that my machine is threaded correctly. And while I'm threading this, I didn't get to talk to you about some new needles that we have, and they're called MR needles and how nice they are. So if you haven't seen them, and since you have your coupon codes, go and check them out. So this is a time to get all those little accessories, those extra bobbins, your extra needles, extra threads, and items like that with that nice coupon that you're going to get. So, and use it for those accessories. So, okay. So I've got my scissors here. I'm just trying to take a little puff of batting, and I haven't closed it all off. So I could just stuff this right here, and you can just decide how much you want it. But if you make it too stuffy, it's like a doll, and it's not going to be as bouncy and as fun. So don't put too much in, just enough. And then I'm just going to do this side too. And now I'm just going to sew right down here and right across here. It's kind of fun and creative. So I hope you all will try it, because it's a lot of fun. I'm going to have to undo this just a little bit so I can sew across it. There we go. All right. So now I'm just going to fill this up just a little bit more. I'm going to bring my machine. I'm going to come and I want to sew down right here. I want to sew the V, and then I'm going to come up across and then sew down right here to this point and then bring it back up. And then I'm going to move across and sew here and then sew here. Okay, and I also need to sew right here. So it's just stitching in the ditch is what you're going to do. My camera is right there in my way, but I'm just going to bring my thread up. All right, let's go for it. Oh, I need a little more tension. And I'm going to use my hands again just to pull it across. Notice how this helps to kind of guide me. And I'm just using my fingers to span the width of it so I can get that extra little tension. And I'm going to go slow. I don't have to go fast. This is one of those things that you can go slow on. And you're going to move up my quilt. I'm going to go across. But boy, it makes fast work. All of these squares I just sewed on this morning and stuffed when I got here. Now I'm just going to keep going across and come down. Now I'm going to come across this way. And now I'm going to close it, and I'm just going to go back. And now I can go back up this way just to close this off. I just don't want to close my bottom off. And now I can come across again. And like I said, just go slow in your comfort zone. Okay, and I want to go all the way down on this one. Okay, now I want to kind of come back up, but I want to stuff it first, okay? So your bungee clamps would come in very handy. So I'm going to stuff in my bottom portion, and then I'm just going to sew around my diagonals. Okay, so let me And I don't have to close it off because I'm going to close it off with my next layer. So I just want to sew down here so that I get the look of my flower. There we go. And now I'm going to just come up this way, right here, and also pull it out. And if you get a little wrinkle, it's okay, because that's what a baby bubble quilt has, is a little wrinkle. So it's good to go. There we go. Okay, let me see. I've got to do these two down here. And so I'm not going to travel along it. I'll just make my cut. All right, so I've just got to travel down here. And then oops, that one's not so hot. There we go. And my last one is right here. And then I'm going to show you how to sew down it. So I'm going to just leave this one flat just to kind of give it a different look. And I'll go in and sew it down later. There we go. Okay, now let me show you how to do the next row. All right, and I'm going to sew down the sides here, but I'm just going to move on to the next row. So I'm going to pin the row on, and then I'm going to row it for you. So since I did mine in the order that I wanted them, this one here is going to go on next, and then I'm just going to show you how to sew across. Okay, so I don't want right sides up. I want wrong sides together. And then I'm just going to make sure that my seams kind of line up as close as possible. And then if you pin it up like this, you can move straight across without hitting your pin. So just put your pins in various locations. Just make sure that your seams are lining up as close as possible. Okay. And notice now that I'm getting into the puffy part. So I want to hold it down. And what's nice with these frames right here, because I'm floating, I can get underneath and it makes my pinning that much easier. Okay, almost done. I'm going to put one right here because I have a feeling that I don't want that to come up. There we go, and I want to pull that down just a little bit. Here we go. Almost all the way across. I'm sorry that it takes time to pin here, but it's one of those steps that's really important. Okay. And with the strip quilting, it is important to pin. And it does take another little step. And then you could use your channel locks if you wanted to. But I have chosen not to on this one here. But if you wanted to use them, go ahead, use them. It might help you a little, it might make it a little easier. And then I just want to pin this last one here. So notice that I pinned it more than one place straight across. And I'm just going to use my foot again to guide you. And then I'll just show you how I put the backing on my last thing. So, okay, I'm using my foot to guide me along about 1/4 of an inch, or roughly 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to move along using my hand again to help me pull it down. Okay, I can see I might be coming to that pin. It might be a little close. So I'm going to pull it out because I don't want to go over it. There we go. I was able to get that wrinkle out. That was nice. There we go. Now I get to show you how to stuff each of these baby bubbles. There we go. Do you remember what I did with my scissors? Oh, there they are. It's a problem with quilting. You lose things, and I lost my scissors there for a minute. All right, so now I'm going to roll it up a little bit. I'm just going to show you on this row here, okay, how I made the pockets and just hurry and stuff them. And I hope you're not too bored. Okay. So see, I have a little pucker right here. I'm not going to worry about that because when I stuff it, it's going to be just fine. So I'm just going to roll this up just a little bit more. I'm going to roll this up just a tad more. Oh, take the clips off, Karla. I just need to roll it up just a little bit for you. And you can see that I'm kind of leaning to one side. That's okay, because I'm not sewing it on a backing. And that's why I didn't, because I knew I'd have a tendency to go up one side or down the other. So when you're sewing it directly to the backing, you're going to have that line as you're sewing, and it's not going to be exactly straight. So just sew it to the batting. All right, so now I'm going to make my little pockets. And I'm just going to show you how I did it. I'm just move along here, and I'm going to pull it down as I go, as I'm quilting. So I'm just going to go right along the edge here, pulling it. Okay, so now I'm going to move off of that square and come over here so I can line up and then go up. And I'll just hold it with both my fingers and go up it. And now I can move along that square. And then I can come down. I just want to tighten this up. I didn't tighten it. There we go. Okay, so now I can move down this square. And then I can move across. And I can move up the square. So I have to just make sure that it's not folding up. And with your hopping foot moving up and down, yes, you can get past it. But that's how you make the squares, the little pockets, just moving across it. Easy. Okay, I'm just going to show you how I stuffed them. So you continue all the way across. And now I just take my little wad and you're just going to stuff them. And that's how you make your baby bubbles. Easy and quick and fast. And then once you get the process down, boy, you'll have the quilt done in no time. So now I'm just going to jump and show you how to put the backing on. So you're going to put the backing on using wrong side together. And I didn't sew this one up on purpose so that you could see how I did it. All right, so I took this off. So I put them wrong sides together. I sewed all the way around it. And then I left an opening here. And I just left it right here. And then I just pulled it right sides out, and I'm just going to whip stitch it, but I didn't want to whip stitch it until I showed you how I did this. And now, after you've sewn this, and you could sew it on the sewing machine, but I would rather see you whip stitch it so it has a blind stitch. I think it'll look a little nicer. But then you have this cute, soft baby bubble quilt that your kids are going to love and they're going to enjoy rolling on and playing with. So I hope you just take this technique and make it your own. And I look forward to seeing all the wonderful creations that you can create.
Wow. I thought I knew where that was going, and then she just knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much, Karla, for sharing with us such an interesting technique, an interesting way of making baby quilts that have a really fun texture with the bubbles, and being able to do them all on the long arm. Kind of a quilt as you go. We have one presentation left today. Our last presentation is at 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and that is You Can Quilt Super Slide Rulers with Leah Day. I hope to see you then. It's only in about 3.5 hours. So if you're watching this live, that can give you an idea no matter where you are in Canada. It's either way, it's 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Anyway, thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions or comments, we're happy to chat with you in the comments down below, or you can call our toll-free number, and we are happy to engage with you that way. Thank you so much for joining us, and